My 25F, soon-to-be ex-boyfriend, 28 male, have been living together for the past few months, dating for about 3 years. I work full-time, as does he makes significantly more than me. Probably close to 3x more than I do, but I honestly couldn't tell you exactly how much he makes because he's very dodgy about his income. We split our bills, he pays about 60%, which is honestly still a bit tight for me, but I have been making it work, and I have no savings. When we moved in together, we each had our own belongings that we were bringing. I had my bed, he had his, he had a couch, etc. Our plan when moving in was to use his bed as our bed. Mine would be in the guest room because his was larger. We weren't planning on keeping his couch forever, but agreed to buy one at a later time because I couldn't financially swing a deposit, first month's rent, all other moving expenses, etc. plus a new couch. Before move-in day, he threw out his bed and couch and decided he wanted to buy new furniture. He had a bed bug scare due to his elderly grandmother's home having bed bugs, and he thought he brought them to his apartment after visiting her. Ended up not being bed bugs, so I understand why he threw them out. Here's where things get frustrating. He knew that I couldn't afford to buy new furniture at the time, and I would need some time to save up, so he agreed to pay for the furniture and I would pay him back in increments each month. He ended up purchasing a very expensive mattress and a brand new couch, which I was there to help pick out. I told him numerous times that if he really wanted to go with these expensive pieces of furniture, it would be a while before I could pay him back in full for my portion. He proceeded anyways, and I gave him my budget for how much I could pay him each month on top of rent and my personal bills. While I recognize that he has spent a good amount more than I have, I am still living outside of my means with this financial agreement that we have. We have had arguments because of this, and he states that I should just do whatever he asks of me because he has been so generous with finances. He asks dumb things of me all the time. For example, I had gotten home from work early after an extremely long week, and was relaxing on the couch when he comes home. He goes into the kitchen, and I hear him say, "Will you make me a snack?" As he's opening the fridge. I get irritated, because I had just gotten home and wanted to relax, and didn't understand why he couldn't make his own snack as he was standing with his head in the fridge already, so I said no. He gets extremely upset. This turns into a massive argument about how he is completely financially supporting me and I'm just not grateful for it at all, and all he's asking is that I be nice to him. I explained to him that I'm not going to do everything he asks of me simply because he can afford more than I can. I told him that it was unfair for him to use my financial situation as a control tactic. He went on to tell me that I am simply not equal to him because I am a woman and he is a man. This is a wild take. Emo, and I should just listen to him and not have an attitude when he asks me to do things. This set me off. I told him that I cannot do it anymore and I would like to move out. He has told me multiple times that he can afford to live here without me, so I figured it wouldn't be an issue. There are other things that led to me calling it quits, like frequent boundary crossing, rude name calling from him, and him being borderline abusive physically. He likes to playfully pin me on the floor, bite, grab, immobilize me, etc. He calls it being playful, but it seriously makes me angry and I have made it very clear to him. Now, I am essentially holed up in our guest bedroom, looking for a way out because I have no savings and living with him has drained my financial resources. I know that the longer I stay here, I will just continue to dig myself deeper in the hole financially. I have family, but they are hours away in a different state, and I cannot leave my job without notice. I've been looking for places in this area that I can afford, but it's an odd time of year to rent and there aren't many places available. I just don't know how to get out before I lose my mind. Any and all advice is welcome. Update 1. It's 2 days later and I have officially moved out of state. To all those saying he is physically and financially abusive, you are correct. The night after I posted this, he came into the spare bedroom where I was sleeping and woke me up at 1 o'clock in the morning. He grabbed my phone out of the bed, and stormed off with it. I followed him and tried for a few minutes to get my phone back from him. I eventually got it back, and he followed me back downstairs, then upstairs, then back downstairs. He followed me around, grabbing me by my wrists, attempting to pin me onto the floor or the bed. He would pick me up and try to carry me outside of the house as I was yelling at him to stop and just let me go back to sleep. He followed me downstairs where I was getting back in bed to go back to sleep because it was the middle of the night. He jumped in the bed with me after undressing himself and wrapped his arms and legs around me, immobilizing me, and then proceeded to try to bite me. I did poke him in the eye by accident, while trying to shove him off of me. I was swinging my arms at him as much as I could while being pinned down by his arms, legs and entire body weight. He didn't stop until I screamed at him that I wanted nothing to do with him and to leave me the F/CK alone. At this point, he becomes furious, gets up and says that if that's how I feel, then I can just get the F/CK out right now. He then goes to the closet with my clothes hanging in them and tries to pull my clothes out of the closet. I go to stop him, pulling his arm out of the hangers, and he stumbles back, running into the closet door. He continues to shout about how I can get the F/CK out and find somewhere else to stay, or go to a hotel. I broke down sobbing, just completely drained, mentally and physically, after going around for about an hour trying to get him to leave me alone. I end up calling my mom a little after 2 a.m., sobbing, and telling her that I need to come home and I need help. I tell her what's going on, as he, my ex, is still standing over me in the guest bedroom. I'm sitting in the bed and he is standing next to the bed just watching me. As soon as he realizes that I am talking with my mom, he switches up really quick and says to my mother, "I'm really sorry you're dealing with this. She is going through nicotine withdrawal and is treating me like shit." I started yelling at him through my sobbing, with my mother still on the phone, telling him to leave me the f/ck alone, to go away and let me go to sleep, etc. He begins recording me on his phone at some point. This goes on for a bit. I have my mom on the phone with me and my ex is just standing in the guest room next to me while I'm sobbing in the bed. I attempt to go upstairs, out onto our back deck to talk to my mom without him standing over me. He follows me, still playing the innocent victim. I again start yelling and telling him to leave me alone. Eventually, he gets irritated enough by my yelling for him to stop following me and leave me alone, and says that he will go somewhere else for the time being. He'll pack a bag and give me time to move my stuff out. My mother is still in the phone, so he is using a very calm tone of voice and acting as though he's been extremely rational and calm the entire time, while I am a hysterical mess. While he is gathering some of his things, my dad wakes up and my mom fills him in on what is going on. My dad immediately said he is going to call the police. My ex overheard this, looked at me and just said that's crazy and walked out about 20 minutes later, after throwing his house key at me. My parents did call the police. They showed up probably 10 to 15 minutes after my ex left the house. I spoke with the police about what was going on, and they informed me that my ex had called them before my parents even had. He called the police immediately after he overheard my dad saying he was going to call the police. He also told the police that I attacked him. I hit him several times in the face, open and closed-handed. He told the police that I punched him in the face. I had a red mark on my wrist from my ex grabbing me that I showed the officer, and he said that there wasn't anything there that he could see and there was no legitimate reason for them to remove either of us from the home. The officer told me that my ex could return to the home if he wished to, and that we would just have to not interact with each other. There would be an affidavit submitted to the court with each of our statements and they will determine if charges will be filed against either of us. The officer left, and returned with a domestic violence resource pamphlet, and asked me to give him the key that my ex had thrown at me before leaving the home. I complied, and the officer told me that my ex had been sitting just down the street from our house, and would be returning in about 30 seconds but that I need to stay on the guest bedroom level, and my ex needs to stay on the top level and we need to not interact with each other at all. I agree to do that. My ex returns, I am back in bed downstairs, still on the phone with my mom after several hours. My parents decided that they were going to come get me, so they got on the road during my conversation with the police officers. I remain on the phone with my mom all night, attempting to sleep but only being able to doze for a few minutes at a time before waking again. In the morning, my ex comes walking downstairs on the level that is supposed to be off limits to him, per our agreement with the officer. I overhear him on the phone with a reporting center for reporter abuse of adults or children. He gives them my name and information, and I also overhear him say my sister's name and something about violence in that family. About 20 minutes later, he comes downstairs again as I am packing my things. I tell him he needs to go back upstairs and leave me alone. He just says I will. Just so you are aware, I'm having a PFA filed against you, so I need to know when your parents will be here so I can let my attorney know, protection from abuse order. I ignore him, and he walks back upstairs. I go on with packing my things, and some time later he comes back downstairs. I am in the guest bedroom changing, and he pushes the door open. It wasn't completely latched, he was not supposed to be down there, and starts asking me again, when I am leaving. I tell him to get the fuck out. He can see that I am changing, and stop coming downstairs. He then says I need to know what date you'll be leaving so I can file the PFA. Once I file it, you can't be here. I said okay great. He walks back upstairs. My mom and dad start talking about how what he is doing is an intimidation tactic, and I'm just questioning why he's claiming he is so afraid of me that he needs a protection order, but he's not afraid of coming downstairs and trying to talk to me multiple times, walking around for no reason on speakerphone with a reporting center. The whole situation just felt like he was baiting me. My parents eventually showed up. They called the police ahead of time and asked that an officer meet them at the house because my ex was still there, with free range of the house while I was still holed up in the basement bedroom. My ex, of course, spoke with the officer when he arrived, and appeared calm, stating that he will go elsewhere while we do what we need to do to get my stuff moved out. He stated all he asks is that we just lock up after we leave. The officer stays outside the home while we move all of my belongings. He ends up staying for probably close to 2 hours. After packing all of my things, I tell the officer that the home is locked, the key is left by the door, and I will be returning to my home state. I went to my office building. I had spoken with my supervisor early that morning so she was aware of what was happening. I met with her, and she informed me that they understood me having to leave so abruptly and they would be paying out all of my sick leave and PTO to cover me for the next 4 weeks and that if at any point I wanted to return, they would reserve my position. I thanked her, and apologized profusely about the situation. I feel so horrible about leaving a position with no notice at all, and one that has been a really fantastic job that I saw myself staying at long term and was so generous and understanding about my situation. I am now back in my home state, with my parents and siblings and I feel like I am living in a fever dream. None of it feels real at the moment. This is possible the worst 24 to 48 hours I've ever experienced. I am not looking forward to what my life will look like if I have to go to court over this, if my ex actually files for a PFA and or his statement leads the courts to believe that charges need to be filed on me. I don't know what is going to happen next, but I am out and I am safe. Now on to second story. Rejected a pushy mom's demand to include her son in our adult-only D&D game, almost causing a store incident and losing a great kid player. I run 2 D&D games. One I run at a local game shop. It is family friendly and I welcome anyone who can behave and take a shower. Second game is run at my house with me and my 4 oldest friends. We get drunk and screw around in the campaign. It's a campaign we have been running since 5e first came out and is very much built around our terrible humor. Very not public play space friendly. New player is a nice 9-year-old kid named Simon. He loves playing in my public game and found out I run another game. Asked if he could join and I told him it wasn't really open to new players. He was cool about it. Simon is a good kid. Simon's mom found out later when she picked him up and tried to force him into my other game. I had to get the owner to help me calm her down and get her to leave. Simon was in tears apologizing. I felt so bad for him. Owner told mom if she ever set foot in his store again he'd ban her and Simon from the store and get the police involved if he had to. She left in a hurry and almost phoned a car in her rush to leave. Simon's dad drops him off now. He came to me and the owner and begged our forgiveness. Turns out mom wanted Simon in my game as a form of babysitting so she could go out and party with her other terrible mom friends. We told him as long as it's him dropping Simon off there won't be any issues. He's a good kid. And I'd hate to lose our monk. Update 1. If I have any updates on things I'll post on my profile so as to not spam unrelated things on various subreddits. Hey everyone. It has been pure chaos the last few days but after everyone was so nice I figured I'd let you guys know what has happened since it's mostly good news and should put some minds at ease. I ran into Simon's dad and his sister Anna at the store and they invited me out to lunch to chat. Simon's doing pretty well all things considered. Dad says he and mom were already most of the way through the divorce process but he and his, almost, ex-wife agreed to keep it quiet until they had finalized some agreements. Mom showed her ass yet again and basically admitted she didn't want Simon very often and negotiated for some money in exchange for giving full custody to dad with a few holiday visitations if she can make it. She's moving a few states away to live with some of her friends from college. He doubts they see her more than once a year if that. He said it went as well as he could have hoped. He's just glad it's almost over. Auntie Anna, as Simon calls her, is dad's sister. She's stepping in to help with Simon while dad juggles everything. She brought him to the shop this weekend and she hung out by me while I ran the game so she could learn. Everyone had a good time. Even got a few giggles from Anna so I'll consider that a GM's job well done for first impressions of the hobby. Shame the first RP she had to see was me as Marty the farty lizardfolk merchant NPC that they ran into last session. Lots of hissing and farting noises out of me for 15 minutes. Simon was able to pass enough con saves to buy what the party needed from Marty, discounts in exchange for risk of poison damage, and they tricked the corrupt town guard into accidentally arresting themselves due to an elaborate performance by the bard and Simon's monk. Game went well. Anna and I talked while Simon looked at all the dice sets for an hour after the game. She's been pulled into a parent group of parents of kids in Simon's class. I guess Simon has all the other kids wanting to try playing and since my private game is on hiatus for at least 6 months I offered to run one if the parents were comfortable with it. I end up getting added to the group chat and Anna's house is where we're gaming. Next day Anna and I met up for lunch and I helped her put together a gaming space in her living room. A few of the moms came by to drop off some snacks and to introduce themselves in person. I feel like I've been adopted into a family of families but I don't even have a family of my own. Everyone has been great. I'm so glad Simon is surrounded by these people and not people like his mom. The kids were all very well behaved. Anna and I were a bit nervous being the chaperones for a bunch of kids, but Simon's friends are great. They all had a blast making characters and doing the test encounters I had for them. There's a girl that made certain she was always seated next to Simon and barely takes her eyes off him. She has a huge crush on him, but don't think he even realizes what's going on. It's adorable. Parents were all happy with game night, and honestly I liked running for all kids way more than I had expected. Anna and I agreed we were fine with doing this regularly so now Anna and I are the game masters to everyone. Also I'm now Uncle Caleb to Simon. Not sure what I did to earn the title, and I definitely didn't get emotional when he called me that. So that's about it. I still run 2 games. I've been adopted by a 9-year-old. And I've taken over Anna's living room with minis and battle mats. Simon is an incredible little dude and I'm glad to have met him and his amazing family, one parent excluded. It's been a week. I've known this woman for about a week and I've already fallen hard. Infatuation levels are all set to max. She's incredible. Gonna be spending a lot of time with her for a few weeks and I and a lot of folks we know are saying I should ask her out. I'm going to. I just want to let us get through this busy point and take a bit of time to get to know her more. First, before I do that, I'm just going to update here if I have any good news to share at some point. Update 2. Hello everyone. While this is an update originating from a post on RP Horror Stories, there isn't much of a horror story anymore. Just some updates on my situation and the people in my life. I wasn't expecting as much interest after the initial drama, but I've also been made aware just how much of a dense goober I am, partially thanks to folks on Reddit pointing some things out. My nephew Simon is the coolest little dude in the universe. His interest in board games is starting to really take off ever since Anna brought him over to my place and he saw my shelf of games. He absolutely loves Ticket to Ride. I gave it to him and he wants to play it next game night. The public game party is now chasing the big bad through a few portals leading to a chronomancer's domain in the stomach of a kraken. So that should be fun. Simon has expressed interest in learning to DM. I'll teach him everything I know. I would gladly play in any campaign that boy runs. He said he has some ideas and I intend to help him make those into dice-based reality. As for how he's handling the situation with his mom, Simon is doing well, but he struggles. He's very clingy toward Drew. I'm betting this is normal for kids in Simon's situation. Simon has Drew, Anna, and a good head on his shoulders. He'll be fine. Drew and Simon spend a lot of their time together just doing little projects. They're currently putting together a puzzle while watching Simon's shows. Drew told me this was a once-a-month thing due to his work schedule. Now it's several times a week and they both love it. Drew did need a little time to decompress from dad mode, so one night he and I went out to a bar for a few drinks. He told me about his plans to take Simon out of town on a father-son trip. Simon's just excited the hotel has a pool. Drew says he doesn't plan to date or do anything anytime soon. The ink's still dry on the divorce papers. I think single dad is what I want to be right now. He wants to focus on Simon and figuring out what life looks like for them going forward. As for Anna, she was initially busy balancing work, Simon, game nights, and a bunch of other responsibilities since she stepped up to help Drew. Things stabilized a lot faster than anyone expected, with the divorce resolving smoothly and Simon being the easiest child in the world to take care of. Now that Drew is using vacation time, she has had a bit more free time until he goes back to full-time work. So she's been catching up on some of her hobbies like baking and playing games on her Switch. I had to come over and run the cables to hook it up to her TV because she couldn't reach. She also needed my help setting up her Wi-Fi when she got a new router. And she has had multiple issues with her laptop that I've had to resolve for her. That woman is brilliant in every other regard, but truly clueless when it comes to tech. But I was paid for my ticket resolutions and homemade meals. So I'll call it even. The more time I spent with Anna, the more confident I got that asking her out was the right call. So I asked her out and she said yes. Unfortunately, Anna gets migraines semi-regularly and one hit her just before our date. I came over and she was visibly miserable but trying to convince me it was okay and we'd still go out. I practically had to order her to go get into bed. Got her migraine pills and some water for her. Blacked out the curtains and told her to call if she needed anything. She called me a few hours later asking for something to eat because she was feeling better, so I got her some dinner and ate with her. She kept trying to apologize, but I told her to make it up to me with another date next day. Which we were able to actually go on. It was a fantastic night. Had some amazing food and walked around town and talked. Then went back to drop her off and we sat out in my car for another hour and talked. The last thing she said before getting out and running in was, "You're my boyfriend now, by the way," before shutting the door. I had no intention to argue even if she'd left me time to. Since then we've gone on a few more dates with our free time and we're both really happy with how things are going. It turns out Anna was a few days away from asking me out herself if I didn't make a move. She also hasn't stopped teasing me about Marty and his farts. And I told her about the werewolf Pierre Wolf I'm using soon and she won't stop patting my head and calling me the good boy. I'm not giving her character previews anymore. I guess that's it. In the last few weeks my life has changed so drastically it's insane. This may be strange to say, but thank you for sharing in this internet sharing circle thing that this became for me. Update 3. Posting here too since TifuBot said I was asking for advice? Not sure there. Got to vent my embarrassment somehow. I've been putting off clearing out my old storage unit for a year now. Asked my girlfriend if she'd help me clean it out and I'd take her to lunch after. I hadn't looked in some of these boxes in the years I've had them since high school, but for some reason was confident I had thrown anything too embarrassing out years ago. Well, I was taking a box back to the car when I hear my girlfriend start cackling. I come back and she is holding up a bag of personal time reading material I had from when I was in high school and had to take trips to a family cabin with no internet for weeks at a time. I was a teenager, don't judge me too much. She's laughing so hard she was crying and my face was burning so hot I could have cooked an egg on it. She spent lunch snickering and making fun of me. And she made sure to point out how similar many of those girls looked to her. I then had to explain that 15-year-old me would have high-fived me until his arm fell off if he knew you were who he'd get to date in 20 years. I however would not have trusted that hand. I know where it has been.